What makes a Beatles song a Beatles song? Most of us have grown up listening to the music of our generation. We're influenced by the styles and words of popular culture that surround us. The Beatles, too, were a product of their time and culture. Yet they were different. Paul and John were boys in Liverpool, England, when skiffle was the rage. Wanting to be a part of that music scene, they imitated what they saw and heard. Like many others, they learned to play the popular tunes, often borrowing records from friends to learn the licks and likes that caught their fancy. Hi, I'm Benjamin Devi. I'll get right back to what's so great about the Beatles, but I want to ask you a favor. Thank you for watching this video. Please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. I love to share my songs and music videos. I'm inspired by great artists and musicians like Paul McCartney and the Beatles. I hope you will help my channel grow by sharing links and engaging in great discussions. So what was different about Paul McCartney and John Lennon? Besides playing and singing songs that were popular, the two teens wrote songs of their own. They just did what came to them. Paul had already been writing songs from an early age. He wrote Penny Lane as a boy, describing the sights and sounds of his hometown. When they got together, Paul and John fed off each other's ideas. She was just 17, Paul put out, to which John responded, "If you know what I mean." And the way she looked was way beyond compare. Throughout their shared history, they continued to collaborate in this way, adding new dimensions to the ideas as they went. Nobody told them what they could or couldn't do. They just wrote songs, sitting across from each other, mirroring chords and making up as they went along. John was part of a band and Paul soon joined in. He wanted his friend George Harrison to join in too, even though George was younger than everyone else. He knew the chords and made a great part of the group. The Quarrymen Band played in clubs doing covers like Last Train to Memphis and One After 909. But unlike other bands covering Chuck Berry, Barry Holly, Elvis, and the Everly Brothers, the group was soon creating their own sound. The crowd at the Cavern and other clubs soon took to the style that was unique to the Beatles, with their own songs like She Loves You, Love Me Do, and Please Please Me. Paul and John had reservations about their drummer, Pete Best, and would have studio drummers sit in on the sessions when it mattered to get the sound that they were looking for. While they played in Hamburg, Germany as second billing to Storm's Hurricanes, they watched the drummer of the other band, Ringo Starr, and invited him to be part of their group. And the group spent hard months grinding 3 sets a day in Germany, eventually returning home to Liverpool with a refined sound and a polished work ethic. All the while they continued creating songs of their own. Whenever they were alone, Paul and John faced off and came up with songs together. Between sets, before hitting the sack in motel rooms or at John's home, it was just what they did whenever they had a chance. They'd trade ideas back and forth. They seemed to each have a backlog of ideas to work on, and they took advantage of every chance to get the ideas down. They didn't need to write anything. If they remembered the song the next day, it was a keeper. What makes a Beatles song a Beatles song? First of all, the Beatles didn't just repeat ideas in a rehearsed way. Each song started as a groove or lick, and they followed to see where the thoughts and responses led. It wasn't like, remember what we did with the other one. It was more, here's an interesting combination. It goes like this. Then they explored the sketch, adding impromptus and reactions, the ideas growing together. It wasn't so much a process as it was seeing how the song evolved. It never needed to be forced to fit within a style. Rather, each song would be able to live and breathe a life of its own. Much of the time, the music came with the words. Other times, a musical line came first, waiting for the right lyric to come along. George had a lick without words, and John said, "Put in rutabagas until you know what the lyric will be." Paul kept singing scrambled eggs until the lyric settled into yesterday. The group vamped on a theme of displaced immigrants to get back, before JoJo and Sweet Loretta became characters in the song. Many of the Beatles' lyrics are a product of a collaborative stream of consciousness. They aren't a logical conclusion of a predetermined theme or title. There are, of course, exceptions. John saw a picture his daughter drew and asked what it was, and she replied, "It's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." Another time, Paul was startled when an obsessed fan broke into his house. She came in through the bathroom window. Beatles lyrics often stem from a first/second person perspective, me and you. The songwriter-singer is in a personal conversation with the other person, the you. Details are situational and often personal, even when conceived as part of a fictional situation or story. In each instance, they are immersed in a role or story involving two individuals. Sometimes the fictional pairing goes into a third-person story, retaining elements of a relationship dynamics. A particular dynamic comes from this approach. The listener takes on first or second-person role. You can personalize Paul's words when you hear, "Yesterday, love was such an easy game to play." You can easily think of the lyrics as your own complicated emotions, or you can play it as a message from your loved one. And it also works as the longing of someone not in a relationship. The song works similarly on each level. The listener is an intimate part of the song, projecting and internalizing the message. The Beatles' lyrics often delved into personal introspection of philosophical themes, exploring love, identity, existential questions, and social issues. Their songwriting has an emotional depth and personal framing that resonates with the listeners. The Beatles, of course, don't own a franchise on personal songs, but their songs and hooks are dear to fans everywhere. A diversity of styles is a big part of the Beatles' songwriting. There is no single song style or recording technique that sets apart the Beatles' sound. Each song is its own entity. Every song is particular to itself. Eleanor Rigby has a style uniquely different from Nowhere Man, Come Together, Strawberry Fields Forever, Revolution, and A Day in the Life. And none of them sound like the Beatles' early years. Their songs all have a different point of origin and final rendering. Penny Lane's musical whimsy draws a lot of influence from Paul's home setting, singing along with his father, playing the upright to vaudeville songs Paul grew up with, while Hey Bulldog might draw on Lennon's Bob Dylan influence. And Looking Through a Glass Onion borrows a sitar influence George picked up while the group camped in with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in Rishikesh, India. Pick any Beatles song, and the style is uniquely developed within the concept of that song. The Beatles drew inspiration from various musical genres and diverse musical influences, including rock and roll, folk, classical, psychedelica, Indian music, and everything that was current on the scene. They effortlessly fused different styles and genres to create something entirely unique, bridging the gap between pop music and avant-garde experimentation. Beatles songs have a melodic and harmonic complexity. They incorporated intricate melodies and harmonies that were seldom heard in popular music at the time. Their songs often featured unexpected chord progressions and intricate vocal harmonies. They wrote catchy and memorable hooks that were instantly recognizable and still today are memorable. These hooks would stick in the listener's mind and are part of what made their songs so iconic. The Beatles share a rare collaboration of talents. Lennon's songs have an edge of sophisticated skeptic, looking on the world with a twisted, maybe distrustful or even mischievous grin. McCartney was incredibly prolific, creating ideas on demand, hardly keeping up with everything in his mind. He had a joyful outlook no one could suppress. Even after the breakup, Paul never let up, cranking out tunes like Fast Food Order Up. Lennon and McCartney shared a unique synthesis of working together that produced nearly 200 songs. Paul's lively bass lines were as uniquely fitted to the songs as John's guitar parts. Paul was also a virtuoso, often showing the guys how he saw their parts to a song. He would often play whatever instrument was nearby in the studio for the needed part. George Martin was a technician and idea man, coming up with fitting classical-sounding riffs or orchestration that gave the right touch. He offered refinement and musical articulation to the guy's raw talent. Ringo fit the right beat into each song, never overplaying a fill or soloing over a song. John and Paul were the engine behind prolific output over the 8 years the Beatles were together. And even though it seemed George could hardly get attention to have the group work on some of his songs, Something, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Here Comes the Sun are among the Beatles' most popular songs. Everyone's contributions were amazing. The part each person played was part of the Beatles' sound. The late work of the Beatles recording is known for experimental production techniques. They constantly pushed the conventional boundaries of recording and production. They revolutionized the use of studio techniques, such as double-tracking vocals, backward tape loops, and innovative use of instrumentation. These experimental and often groundbreaking production choices became synonymous with their sound. Whether it's using feedback hum for a song intro, looping tapes across the studio, recorded from sundry sources, or repurposing a classical orchestra to create chaotic crescendos in Day of the Life, the Beatles used every available sound tool as creative input and final finishing for new song ideas. Not only were their songs products of their cultural influences, they were innovative and something completely new at every turn. The Beatles' songs remained timeless, outlasting popular trends, and remaining as influential works for the years ahead, with universal, lasting appeal for the ages. Beatles songs continue to resonate with listeners from different generations and backgrounds. Their music transcends cultural boundaries and continues to be enjoyed and revered decades after their initial release. They've been a major influence on the musicians and bands of their times, and their influence continues today. The Beatles inspire and motivate me to make my best music. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Finally, you can't consider the Beatles' impact without pointing out the energy of their fans. Audiences across the world went wild to be part of the Beatles' experience. They filled stadiums with screaming girls swooning to see the boys from Liverpool. The energy was electric, setting trends and audience records that left critics scratching their heads in wonder. Their final concert on the rooftop of Apple Corp's headquarters took London by surprise. People gathered on the streets surrounding 3 Savile Row and neighboring roofs to catch the show. Some of the older generation didn't get what the fuss was about, but the fans felt lucky to be a part of musical history. What makes a Beatles song? It's the combination of innovative songwriting, talent, prolific discography, distinct production techniques, diverse musical influence, and deep emotional depth. It's art, popular culture, and swagger. It's a revolution of the ages, one that took the world by surprise and defied every expectation. A Beatles song is quite like nothing else is, well, a Beatles song. Thank you for watching this video. Please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. I love to share my songs and music videos.